So I'm in conversation with Mark MacDonald, and Mark is a bishop in the Anglican Church, and I'm going to let him describe what that means. He is a First Nations person, and we're talking today about the meaning and the nature of place and land. But before we go there, Mark, you're a bishop, but you're a particular kind of bishop. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
I am the National Indigenous Anglican Bishop. That means that I have a pastoral and episcopal relationship with all of the Indigenous congregations and indeed all Indigenous people within the Anglican Church of Canada, which is, I'm the first person to have this position. I am now 10 years into my work. We have tried to structure the life of the Indigenous presence within the Anglican Church of Canada more by an Indigenous understanding of identity, of relationship to the land. We're still trying to articulate that and then to live by it in a practical level.
And you yourself come out of a particular, or belong to a particular First Nations tribe, nation. Can you describe a little bit of your own background?
Well, my tribe of note is the Wyandot people. That's my grandfather's people, and but I grew up in northern Minnesota among Ojibwe people, and I've spent a lot of time there. I also was the Bishop of Alaska for 10 years, in which I worked with Inuit people and the other Indigenous nations of Alaska, and more particularly and more decisive in terms of my thinking and identity. I lived in Navajo land for 5 years, have maintained a ongoing relationship with that area and with its spiritual teachings, and for a while was their stand-in bishop while they were in between bishops. So that's a little bit about my context and background. I've spent most of my adult life living in Indigenous communities and doing work in an Indigenous context.
And just say a little bit about how you came to become an Anglican priest and bishop.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the Episcopal Church in the United States, and although my family was not actively involved, they were nominal members. It nevertheless had some impact on me and shaped my thinking. After a very troubled time in my teenage years, I had a strong experience of conversion and discipleship that reaffirmed my relationship with Christ, most importantly. But as a gradual part of that process, I became established in an Anglican context and felt most comfortable expressing my Christian life and discipleship in that context. As a result of that, when I experienced a call to ordain ministry, I went to Wycliffe College in Toronto, and as I worked through my identity and sense of belonging, I gradually became more and more convinced that the place to express my calling and my discipleship was in the Anglican Church.
Neato. So when we talk about land and place, particularly amongst First Nations peoples, we're entering, when I say we, I'm clearly white Anglo-Saxon. we're entering a very different understanding and relationship to land and place, which I want to invite you to talk about, because my overall relationship to land and place is both real estate that I own and happen to live in, a resource for my retirement, or it's a nostalgic remembering of where I grew up as a kid in another land. I wonder whether you could begin to describe something of the understanding and the relationship to place and land amongst First Nations peoples. Are they the same thing or different things? But just talk a bit about that, Mark.
Okay. What immediately comes to mind is the Ojibwe word to describe male elders, akawenzi. It means the caretaker of the land. And it's an indication, and I'll say more about that term aki, which is for land, in a minute, but it's an indication that as someone grows, as someone matures, and someone develops, in terms of their spiritual and moral significance, the relationship to the land is critical, so that identifying someone as taking care of the land is the primary significance for age, and the purpose of life and age is this moral spiritual relationship to the land. I think that the term aki, land, describes something that is quite a bit different than the way land is used in Western societies, the concept. It appears to me that the land, the idea of land in Ojibwe and other indigenous languages has more to do with what we might call ecosphere. All of the relationships within a particular place that create and sustain life. These relationships are considered holy and important, and they determine the moral and spiritual framework in which people live and move and operate. So in the Ojibwe translation of John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the land," Aki, "for God so loved the land that he gave his only begotten son." The idea the idea there being that the land itself has this kind of moral, spiritual significance. It is lovely and pleasing to God. The Isaiah 6, "Holy, holy, holy, Lord God of hosts, heaven and the land are full of your glory." The idea that land itself reflects a type of relationship that is essential to life and essential to the development of moral and spiritual capacity and significance.